Before you hear this story, you need to understand something. We weren't supposed to survive Antarctica. They said these rules would keep us safe, but no one told us what the rules were really for. And on the fourth night, something finally answered back. Stay with me. What happened next changed all of us forever. If there's one thing I regret, it's that I didn't warn them sooner. I could have said it the moment their boots touched the ice. The moment the rotor wash faded and the sky swallowed the last machine capable of carrying them back to civilization. I could have told them the truth, that out here, at the bottom of the world, danger doesn't always approach screaming. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it sounds exactly like the person you love most begging you to open a door you should never open. And sometimes, the first time you see it, you mistake it for your own reflection. My name is Ethan Cole. I've wintered at Polaris Ridge Station for 9 consecutive seasons. Long enough to know which sounds in the night are normal, which ones are warnings, and which ones mean nothing, except that your mind is starting to betray you. Long enough to understand why the rules matter more than oxygen. Long enough to bury more names in my memory than I ever wanted to carry. But this story isn't about me. Not really. This story is about the 5 recruits who stepped off that helicopter with the kind of confidence you only have when you believe the world is still ordinary. The kind of confidence that gets peeled away layer by layer down here until what's left is the truest form of yourself. Or, God forbid, the truest form of something pretending to be you. I'll tell this story the way it happened, as honestly as I can, and if you're listening, take this as a warning. Not a ghost story, not a campfire tale, a report, a record, a truth someone needs to hear. Because the next time you hear a voice calling your name from the dark, you might respond, and that's how it starts. That's the hook they never see coming. So before we begin, if you want to hear the full story of what happened inside Polaris Ridge Station, the real story, make sure you subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know, and it keeps me going so I can bring the rest of this tale to light. Now, let's go back to the day they arrived. The sound of the helicopter blades faded into the grey nothing above us, swallowed by the kind of silence that only exists in Antarctica. Not a peaceful silence, an aware silence, the kind that presses against your ears until you swear something is listening back. The 5 recruits stood beside me on the landing pad, their breath fogging the air, their eyes following the thinning speck of the departing aircraft like it carried every warm memory they had of home. The cold wasn't the worst part. It was the isolation, the realization that every choice you make from this point forward matters more than anyone ever told you. The understanding that if you make the wrong one, the ice will take you without hesitation or remorse. Lena Ward was the first one I noticed. She had red hair tied back in a braid and a look in her eyes that was equal parts fear and determination. She clutched a frayed bracelet around her wrist with the kind of unconscious desperation that hinted at something unsaid. I'd seen that look before. People who come here with secret missions always carry it. Travis Reed, tall with skeptical eyebrows and a permanent expression of disbelief, looked around like the entire continent was some elaborate prank. Naomi Shu had her notebook out before I even introduced myself, already scanning the environment like she was cataloging details for a research paper. Ben Alvarez lingered at the back of the group, quiet, observant, absorbing everything without revealing what he thought of it. I cleared my throat. Welcome to Polaris Ridge Station, the closest thing you'll have to a home for the next 4 months. I'm Ethan Cole, station lead. And before you get too excited, trust me, we are absolutely unquestionably alone. Travis smirked. That's supposed to be comforting? It's supposed to be accurate, I said. Comfort will come later, maybe. A wind gust bit at us hard enough to sting, pushing ice crystals across the ground like glittery razor blades. The sky was dull, washed out, bleached by the endless polar day that would soon give way to 4 months of night. I motioned for them to follow as I led them toward the station. The outpost itself stood half buried in snow, shaped like a metal scar across the white wasteland. The walls hummed faintly from the generators beneath the surface. I entered the access code, a 6-digit sequence we'd been using for years. The door opened with a metallic groan, spilling warm air into the frozen void. Inside, the common room was small, utilitarian, and worn from years of service. Mismatched couches, scratched tables, a kitchenette that had opinions about when it wanted to work, and windows that framed nothing but the endless expanse of ice. "Take a seat anywhere," I said as they filtered in, shedding layers of frost from their coats. They did. Naomi chose a spot where she could see every exit. Travis sprawled on the couch like he owned it. Ben sat with his back to the wall, hands folded neatly, and she positioned herself where she had a clear view of the east-facing door. I clocked that immediately. "Interesting. Before anything else," I said, "we need to talk about the rules." Travis laughed. "Rules? What? Like don't run with scissors?" I met his eyes. "I'll be as clear as I can. These rules are the difference between you making it to the end of winter and someone else having to seal your room and log your belongings." The humor dropped from his face. "Good." I took a slow breath, steadying myself, because the first rule always dredged up memories I tried not to revisit. "Rule number 1, I began. After 20 hours, no one, and I mean no one, opens any exterior door. No matter what you hear, no matter who you think is out there. Once the night settles in, the doors stay shut." Travis tried to joke. "So, we're worried about what? Penguins trying to rob the place? No animal in Antarctica calls you by your first name in your mother's voice," I said. Silence spread across the room like a spill. "Rule number 2, I continued. If you hear someone you know calling from outside, especially from the east side of the building, you ignore it. You don't answer. You don't check. You report it to me." Lena stiffened at that. Her fingers tightened on the bracelet. A flash of something passed across her features: fear, maybe, or memory. "Rule number 3, I said. If you walk past the Snowcat garage after sunset, you keep your eyes forward, and you do not look in the windows. You won't like what looks back." Ben glanced at me, concern flicking across his expression. He didn't ask what I meant. Smart guy. "Rule number 4. The maintenance crew in orange coveralls comes by without warning. You can respond if they ask you something, but you don't start conversation. You don't joke. You don't ask questions. And you don't, under any circumstances, follow them anywhere." Naomi raised a hand. "Why?" "Because they prefer to work undisturbed." She didn't look satisfied, but she wrote it down anyway. "Rule number 5. You log every moment you spend alone. If you notice missing time 10 minutes, an hour, an entire afternoon, you come straight to me. Don't rationalize it. Don't blame exhaustion." Travis let out a low whistle. "This is starting to sound like a cult." "This station makes people unravel," I said. "These rules keep you anchored." The truth was darker, but they weren't ready for that. "And finally," I said, "rule number 6. If I ever tell you to go to the safe room and lock the door, you go. You don't argue. You don't stop for your gear. You go." I let the silence sit for a moment. The weight of the rules always demanded that. Lena was the first to break it. "Has anyone died here?" I didn't answer directly. "People have gotten lost. Yes. Antarctica is a place that offers no second chances." But Lena wasn't really wondering about statistics. She was looking for something else. Someone else. I pressed on before she could ask anything more revealing. "These rules aren't here to scare you. They're here to help you survive the psychological strain of isolation. Structure, discipline, routine. They're the foundation of staying sane when the sun vanishes for months." Naomi nodded in quiet agreement. "Predictability is a powerful stabilizer in hostile environments." "It is," I said. "And out here, your mind needs a lifeline." Travis leaned back, crossing his arms. "Sure, but none of that explains why we can't open a door at night." "Trust the rules," I said. "They were written because someone broke them. I didn't tell them that the last person who opened an exterior door after dark didn't scream. He just walked out, as if following someone he trusted. as if he saw something familiar waiting in the snow. And when we found his tracks the next morning, they weren't alone. Something else had followed him. But the new recruits didn't need that story. Not yet. Instead, I shifted to something they could digest. Look, this place will test you. It'll make you dig deeper into yourself than you ever had to before. But you'll find out you're capable of more than you think. Humans adapt. Humans endure. You're stronger than you know. Those rules, they'll help you keep your footing when everything else feels like it's shifting. There, a note of inspiration to soften the dread. But Lena wasn't buying comfort. She kept staring at that east door, like she expected someone she loved to walk through it at any moment. After the briefing, I showed them around. The narrow hallways, the labs, the comms room where Ben would eventually spend too many nights, the storage areas, the generator corridor humming beneath our feet. I watched each of them take it in, run their fingers along the cold railings, test doors and latches, memorize layouts. Orientation completed, I left them to settle in while I returned to the main hall to update the logs. It was nearing the first night of transition, not darkness yet, but the sky was thinning, losing color, preparing for the plunge. I climbed into my bunk expecting exhaustion to take over, but sleep refused me. My instincts hadn't failed me in years, and right now they told me something had shifted in the air. Around 2 in the morning, I heard footsteps. Slow, hesitant, not the casual wander of someone looking for a bathroom, but the kind that comes from someone being led somewhere. I slid out of bed, pulled on my coat, and stepped into the dim hallway. A faint glow spilled from the north-facing observation window at the far end of the corridor. And there he was, Travis Reed, standing dead still, his silhouette rigid, his hands limp at his sides, his gaze locked on the glass. "Travis," I called softly. He didn't react. I approached slowly, the floor creaking beneath my boots. The air felt wrong. Too warm, too cold, too still. When I reached him, I tapped his shoulder. He flinched so sharply I stepped back. His eyes were glazed, breath shallow. "What are you doing?" I asked. He blinked rapidly, the fog in his eyes clearing like someone dimming down a projection. "I heard something." "What did you hear?" He stared back at the window. "I don't know. Maybe laughing, or someone calling out. I don't know why, but I felt like I should check." "You remember Rule 1, I said gently. "I wasn't opening a door," he offered defensively. "You were staring out a window after dark," I countered. "It's the same risk." He frowned at me, confused. "Risk of what?" I didn't answer. Instead, I guided him away, steering him back toward the common room. But something made me look back, just once. In the reflection, for a split second, I saw something standing beside him, something tall, blurry around the edges, like a figure caught between frames of a film. It wasn't quite human, but the shape was unmistakable, and it was watching him with an intensity that made my stomach turn. When I looked again, it was gone. I didn't tell him. What good would that do? Instead, I handed him a mug of hot tea and told him to try to sleep, though I doubted he would. I stayed up the rest of the night, monitoring the hallway, watching the windows, listening for the soft whisper of a voice that didn't belong. Because this was the first warning, the shift, the beginning of what was to come. And as I sat alone in the dim common room, the weight of my choices settling on my chest like the cold outside the walls, one thing became painfully clear. I should have told them everything. Right then, every rule, every story, every consequence of ignoring the warnings that had kept this station standing for so many years. But I didn't, because the truth is a strange thing down here. If you tell it too soon, people think you're trying to scare them. If you tell it too late, it doesn't matter anymore. I told myself I'd explain everything in the morning, but by morning, it was already too late. That was the night the ice whispered back for the first time, and the sound of it still hasn't left me. The morning after Travis's encounter at the window felt like waking up inside someone else's dream. The light outside the station wasn't real sunlight, just a thin grey wash settling over the landscape like a layer of ash. It was barely 9 a.m. But everyone looked like they hadn't slept in days. And maybe they hadn't, at least not in the way sleep is supposed to work. When I stepped into the common room, Lena was already there, sitting stiffly in one of the corner chairs with a mug of coffee she'd clearly forgotten to drink. Naomi had her laptop open, multiple PDFs and spreadsheets scattered around her like offerings to some data-obsessed god. Travis leaned against the counter with dark circles under his eyes, rubbing at his temples like someone who'd been trying to convince himself all night that he hadn't actually seen what he thought he'd seen. And Ben, quiet, attentive Ben, sat at the far end of the table, hands folded, posture straight, eyes on the floor. No one spoke at first. They were waiting for me to break the silence. New recruits always did. So I tried to start the day the way I always did when things felt heavier than they should. All right, everyone, before we get into the work rotation, we're doing our morning routine. Travis groaned. Please tell me we're not doing icebreaker questions. Better, I said. 3 things you can control today. 3 things you're grateful for. And 1 person here you'll check in on. He blinked. Why? Because structure keeps you grounded, Naomi murmured without looking up. Routine creates psychological safety, prevents spirals. Exactly, I said. And trust me, you'll want something stable when the sun disappears completely. I gave them a moment. Lena whispered her 3 things under her breath. Travis rolled his eyes, but participated anyway. Naomi wrote hers down with the kind of precision I envied. And Ben, he didn't say his out loud, but he nodded, which was enough. For a moment, the atmosphere softened. Not warm, nothing down here was warm but stable. Balanced, good, I said. Now, let's talk assignments. We've got. What happened last night? It was Lena. Her voice cut through the room like a blade. Everyone else stiffened as if she had spoken the thing they were all too afraid to say. I looked at her carefully. She wasn't angry. She wasn't panicked. She was desperate, and desperation always shows itself most clearly in the calmest voices. Nothing happened last night, I said, the lie coming too easily. Just first night nerves. I heard something, she said, gripping the bracelet on her wrist. Somebody walking down the hallway around 3, and then a knock on the wall behind my bed. The others turned to her, startled. Even Naomi paused her typing. Did you check? Travis asked. No, she said quickly. I remembered the rules. Good. At least someone was listening. Buildings make noise, I said. Wind shifts. Temperature drops. Ice expands. Her jaw tightened, not in disagreement, but in disappointment. She already knew I was avoiding the truth. Before she could press the issue, Naomi stood up abruptly. I want to show you all something. She walked over to the counter, lifted her laptop, and placed it on the table. She turned the screen toward us. I've been logging environmental data since we got here, just baseline readings. But, look, the screen displayed a graph, lines dipping sharply at irregular intervals. These are power fluctuations, Naomi said. They happened at exactly 1:14, 1:46, and 1:58. Short dips, a couple seconds each, but too frequent to be random. Generators adjusting to load, I said. No, she replied, shaking her head. Generators don't create electromagnetic spikes at the same time. Look at this. She clicked to a second chart, showing bursts of static in the radio frequency range. My mouth went dry, but I kept my expression neutral. Could be atmospheric interference. Could be, she said. Except. She clicked again. Another graph appeared, showing historical dips over the past years pulled from public records. Polaris Ridge has the same pattern every winter, same times, same intervals. The recruits stared at the screen as if it were a map to something they didn't want to see. Naomi continued. The station has a rhythm, like it's breathing. She wasn't wrong. But I had to keep the line between caution and panic razor thin. Look, I said, Antarctic stations all have quirks. You'll learn what to ignore, but should we ignore them? She pressed. That's the question, isn't it? She was right. It was the question, the one none of them were ready for yet. I steered the conversation back towards safer ground. One thing at a time, Today we do intrastation checks. Ben, you're with me in comms. Travis, you're inspecting the Snowcat garage. No, Naomi said sharply. You told us yesterday not to look in the garage windows. That's a night rule, I clarified. Daytime is fine. Travis muttered. Sure. What could possibly go wrong in the daylight? He didn't know it yet, but daylight in Antarctica was never truly daylight. It was an illusion of safety, a thin shell. We dispersed for the morning, though no one was truly ready to work. The sense of unease hung over the station like a static charge waiting to snap. I walked with Ben down the hallway toward the communication room. He walked quietly, matching my pace. When we reached the door, he hesitated before entering. You okay? I asked. He nodded once. I think so. You think so? He inhaled slowly. I had a weird moment this morning. Probably nothing. I paused, hand on the door. What kind of moment? He glanced down the hallway, making sure no one else was in earshot. I sat down at the workstation around 6 to start drafting an email to my sister. Letting her know I arrived. Okay. Then I checked the clock. It was 6:04. Felt like seconds passed. But then I looked again. He swallowed. It was 6:44. I said nothing. I don't remember writing anything, he continued. When I checked the draft, it was empty. But there was a timestamp, like the system registered activity. You fall asleep? I asked softly. No, he said firmly. I wasn't sleepy, and I wasn't blinking long enough to lose 40 minutes. I studied him. His face was pale, but his eyes were clear. He believed what he was saying. And worse, his voice carried the edge of someone who'd already tried to rationalize it and failed. Time loss was always one of the first signs. Log it, I said. Everything. Every detail. And if it happens again, you come find me immediately. He nodded. We walked into the comms room. The equipment hummed with familiar warmth, the one comforting sound in the building. I oversaw him running diagnostics, teaching him how to cycle through emergency frequencies, how to check for interference, how to distinguish between weather patterns and actual signals. At least, that was the plan. Half an hour in, as I stood over his shoulder explaining how to log emergency traffic, the speaker crackled. At first, it was just static. Then the static formed shape. A voice. Low at first. Indistinct. Then, rising like it had been waiting for the exact frequency to slip through. Ethan Cole, do you copy? Ben froze. I felt my pulse spike, but kept my face calm. The voice continued, garbled but clear enough to know it wasn't a fluke. Ethan, do you remember the pond behind your father's workshop? The one that froze over every winter? Ben looked at me, confusion twisting into fear. How would? The speaker cut off abruptly, leaving the room smothered in silence. Ben whispered, They know your name. Yes, I said softly. They do. That was human, he said. It sounded human. That's why you log missing time, I said, ignoring the question beneath the question. One anomaly becomes a pattern faster than you think. I didn't explain the memory it referenced. That pond was something I hadn't talked about in years. Not to anyone here. Not to anyone alive, for that matter. And whatever that voice was, it hadn't guessed. It remembered something it shouldn't have been capable of remembering at all. The rest of the morning slipped by in a haze of routine checking and pretending everything was normal. The recruits did their tasks, but their expressions told a different story. The station was beginning to press on them, not physically, psychologically, the way it always did. After lunch, I noticed Lena wandering the hallway alone, running her fingers lightly across the bulletin board outside the mess area. I approached quietly. You looking for something? I asked. She jerked her hand back like she'd been caught stealing. No, I was curious who came through here before us. I followed her gaze to an old crew photo laminated to protect it from humidity. A group of 7 winter-over staff smiling awkwardly at the camera. 2 of them were people I knew well once. Now just reminders. One face in the picture caught Lena's attention. A young man with brown hair, standing off center, half-smile tilted like he didn't want his picture taken. His eyes were kind. Too kind for this place. "That's Michael Ward," she said softly. I didn't answer. "He was my brother," she continued quietly. "He was stationed here 3 years ago, right?" I kept my voice neutral. "We've had a lot of people come through Polaris Ridge." She didn't look away from the picture. "Every record I found says he was transferred to another research outpost after his winter here. And 6 months later, he died in a climbing accident in Colorado." I nodded once. "But there's no transfer record." Her voice tightened. "No record at the Colorado lab. No death certificate filed in the county they said he died in. Nothing. It's like he vanished into thin air." I met her eyes. They were full of grief. Yes, but sharper than grief. Purposeful. "I came here because I want to know the truth," she said. "And I think you know something." Her words lodged a knot in my throat. I wanted to tell her everything, right there. That her brother had been a good man, that he'd been brave, that he hadn't deserved what happened. That he'd heard a voice one night calling his name in a tone only he would recognize, and that he'd believed it. That I tried to stop him, and that he didn't scream when the ice took him. But the truth is a weight that can crush someone prematurely. And the station was already absorbing enough of their strength. "All I can tell you," I said gently, "is that you need to trust the rules. They're here for a reason." She looked like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. She just nodded once and walked away, clutching her bracelet so tightly I worried it might snap. The afternoon dragged on until shadows began to shift across the floorboards in that strange, slow-moving way. Antarctic twilight does horizontal, elongated, distorted. Travis returned from the snowcat garage quieter than he'd left. Naomi stayed glued to her laptop. Ben floated through tasks in a daze. We regrouped in the common room just before dinner. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Naomi remarked to Travis. He glared at her. "I'm fine." "That's never true when someone says it that fast," she said, making a note in her journal. Travis rubbed his face. "It's stupid. I thought I saw something in the garage today." My chest tightened. "What did you see?" "Nothing," he said quickly. "It was just a weird reflection, maybe, or glare off the snow." His eyes darted to the far window. He was lying, not because he wanted to, but because he didn't know how to process what he'd witnessed. That's when everything shifted. Again, I heard the footsteps first. Slow, hesitant. The entire room stilled, everyone turning toward the hallway as if pulled by the same invisible string. The echo came again, then a soft knock on the east door. 3 taps. Measured. Intentional. Lena's face went white. I didn't move at first. Every muscle in my body tightened, my instincts screaming. The knock came again, louder this time, followed by a voice. "Lena, it's me." Every drop of blood drained from her face. "Lena, open the door, please. I'm cold." The voice was soft, familiar, heart-wrenchingly familiar, and gentle in a way only someone who loved her deeply could master. "Michael," she whispered. No one breathed. The knock came again. Closer, more impatient. "I've been looking for you," the voice said. "You came all this way. Let me in." Lena took 1 step forward before I grabbed her wrist. "Don't," I said. "Don't move." She pulled against my grip. "That's him. That's his voice." "It isn't," I said. "How would you know?" she demanded, tears forming. "Because I'd heard that voice once before too, from outside a darkened door, calling someone else's name." "It's not him," I said. "Lena, look at me. Don't look at the door." "But he knows. It's learned his voice," I said quietly. "And it's using it." Her breathing turned ragged. She covered her mouth with her hand, fighting a sob. The voice outside grew soft again, more tender. "Lena, please. I'm right here." Her body shook, but she didn't move another step. The knock stopped. Silence settled over the station like fresh snowfall. We waited. 10 seconds, 20. Then the footsteps faded away from the door. Travis exhaled shakily. Jesus. Naomi was already scribbling something wildly in her notebook, muttering theories under her breath. Ben stared at the door like it might breathe again. Lena collapsed into a chair and pressed her palms hard against her eyes, tears slipping between her fingers. When the silence broke, it broke with the sound of someone sobbing quietly and the cold realization that this was just Night One. Night One, and the ice already knew their names. I waited until Lena's breathing steadied before kneeling in front of her. "Listen to me," I said. "Whatever happens, you don't open that door. Not for him, not for anyone." She wiped her eyes. "What if it wasn't him?" I said firmly. "I'm sorry, but it wasn't." She swallowed hard. "How do you know?" "Because the real Michael Ward never came back to the station after that night he went outside. And because the ice only gives back imitations." "I just know," I said softly. "And you have to trust me." She nodded slowly, letting the truth settle in her chest like broken glass. We dispersed to our rooms eventually, though no one would sleep easily. I stayed awake in the hallway, listening for footsteps, for knocks, for whispers, for anything that might slip through the cracks. Around 3 in the morning, I heard something shift behind one of the walls near the comms room. Not loud, just movement, like fingerprints brushing against metal, or something rearranging itself in the ventilation system. The air grew colder, heavier, and for a split second, just before the hum of the generator drowned it out, I heard a voice so faint I almost convinced myself I imagined it. "Ethan." It didn't belong to anyone alive, and it didn't come from outside. It came from the vents. That was the moment I realized the truth I'd been avoiding since the recruits arrived. Whatever lived beneath the ice wasn't waiting anymore. It was exploring, learning, testing, and it had already found a way inside the walls. Sleep was only an idea by the time morning arrived. Not an achievable state, just a theory someone invented to give humans hope. I'd spent the entire night awake in the hallway, listening to the building breathe in a way it wasn't designed to breathe. Metal doesn't settle that rhythmically. Air ducts don't shift like something is moving inside them. And generators don't hum with undertones you can almost mistake for whispering. When I finally forced myself to walk into the common room, the recruits were already awake. Or more accurately, none of them had slept. Travis looked like he'd aged a decade overnight. His eyes were sunken, jaw clenched tight. Naomi was hunched over her laptop again, typing with a manic intensity that bordered on obsession. Ben looked dazed, like someone waking up from anesthesia. And Lena, she sat alone in the far chair, shoulders curled inward, eyes red-rimmed from crying, though she tried to hide it with a stoic expression. No one spoke at first. The silence in that room was the kind of silence only trauma can create. I cleared my throat. "All right." "Morning check-in." No one answered. So I tried again. 3 things you can control today." Still nothing. Lena shifted in her seat. "Can we drop the routine today?" Her voice was small, frayed. "I don't think any of us are in the headspace for gratitude lists." I nodded. "Fine. Then let's talk about what happened." Travis scoffed. "What happened?" "You mean the voice that sounded exactly like Lena's dead brother, asking us to open the door?" "Yeah, Ethan. Maybe we should talk about that." Ben shot him a warning look. "Not helpful." "No," Lena said, rubbing her temples. "He's right. We have to talk about it." I took a slow breath. "Okay, what did each of you experience last night?" Naomi spoke first. "I heard footsteps outside my room around 2, slow, dragging footsteps, and then humming. A lullaby my mother used to sing. She dug her nails into her palm until her knuckles went white. I haven't told anyone here about that." Ben swallowed hard. I had missing time again. I was lying down around midnight just trying to breathe. I closed my eyes for what felt like half a minute. When I opened them, it was 2:15. "That's normal your first few nights," I said. "Your circadian rhythm's under stress." "No," he said firmly. I wasn't asleep. Lena exhaled shakily. I didn't just hear Michael's voice at the door. I heard something else. After the footsteps left, she hesitated, staring down at her trembling hands. It wasn't a person. It wasn't pretending to be a person. It was like someone breathing. right outside, waiting. I felt the room tighten around her words. Then all eyes turned to Travis. He clenched his jaw. Fine. I heard the same voice outside my window. Not my name, but my dad's voice. He's been dead 12 years. He ran a hand through his hair, voice shaking now. And he said something he used to say when I was 10. Something no one else knew, he said. What did he say? Naomi asked quietly. Travis hesitated, then whispered, "Come on, Trav, let's go home." No one spoke for a long time. That sentence carried a weight no rule could protect against. The ice was learning them, studying them, mimicking their histories with terrifying accuracy. I looked each of them in the eye. Listen carefully. The voices aren't memories. They're not ghosts. They're manipulations. Antarctica is not haunted, but something down here uses what it learns to lure people out. Naomi's pen froze mid-scribble. So it's intelligent. Extremely, I said. And opportunistic. It studies patterns. And it's patient. Ben shifted nervously. Why us? Because you're new, I said. You haven't built psychological immunity yet. Travis scoffed. Psychological immunity? Ethan, we heard voices calling to us. That's not psychology. That's... The lights flickered. Not the small flicker of electrical fatigue. A deep flicker. All of the bulbs in the room dimmed simultaneously to a soft red glow before surging back to life. The air hummed just for a moment like something under the station had exhaled. Naomi stared upward. That wasn't a power fluctuation. That was... coordinated. She was right. I was about to respond when the overhead intercom crackled. It crackled the way radio static does, faint at first, then sharp. Then a voice came through. A voice that didn't belong to anyone alive. Ethan, come downstairs. Every head in the room snapped toward the ceiling. Where does that intercom connect? Ben whispered. It doesn't, I said. What do you mean it doesn't? Travis demanded. We hadn't used the intercom system in 5 years. It was disconnected. Physically, I'd cut the wiring myself after an incident no one here needed to know about. But the voice continued. You know where I am. You left me in the dark. Lena's hands flew to her mouth. Oh my God, she whispered. That sounds like... It's not him, I said sharply. It's never them. Travis backed away from the center of the room. What the hell is going on in this place? Naomi scanned the vents. The signal isn't coming from outside. It's coming from inside the station. The voice on the intercom chuckled softly. It wasn't human, and it wasn't trying to be anymore. Then the intercom cut to static, and the lights returned to normal. I stood frozen for a moment before finally saying, Get your gear. We're doing a full systems check. Something's tampered with the wiring. Travis grabbed his coat. But we're staying inside, right? Because I'm not going out there. No one's going outside, I said. We're checking internally. We moved as a group into the main artery hallway, leading toward the generator corridor. The air grew colder the farther we walked, which shouldn't have been possible. The generator corridor was supposed to be the warmest section of the entire station. When we reached the first access hatch, I pulled the heavy door open and felt wind brush against my face, wind coming from inside the station. That wasn't possible. The only airflow should have been from the ventilation system, and even that wouldn't create something this strong. We need to check the lower tunnels, I said. They connect to the old survey shafts. Ben frowned. I thought those tunnels were sealed. They were supposed to be, I said. But if something forced its way in, Naomi whispered, then we're not alone inside the station. The metal ladder descended into darkness. Only a single emergency light flickered faintly below. I grabbed my flashlight and climbed down first. When my boots hit the ground, I nearly slipped. There was moisture pooling at the bottom of the ladder. The tunnels were temperature controlled. Ice couldn't form down here. I pointed my flashlight toward the corridor. Something shimmered on the walls. A thin, crystalline film, like frost growing in hairline pattern. Lena climbed down behind me and gasped softly. It's spreading. Don't touch it, I said. Travis sniffed the air cautiously. It smells. I don't know. metallic. It's reacting to us, Naomi said. Look, when we moved, the frost shifted. She was right. The frost wasn't just spreading. It was pulling toward us, like it was following warmth, or sound, or movement. We need to keep moving, I said. We don't stop in these corridors. We walked deeper into the tunnel, our breath visible in front of our faces. The emergency lights flickered overhead, not at random but in sequence, like something was triggering them. After 50 paces, we reached the junction marked Survey Room C2, a place no one had opened in 3 years. Ben pointed at the door. Is that open? My heart dropped. The door was cracked, just barely, a centimeter gap. But enough. No one opened this, I whispered. No one living. I put a gloved hand against the metal and pushed gently. The door creaked open, revealing a small, circular room with old drilling equipment scattered across the floor. There were dusty crates, corroded metal tubing, and half-disassembled sensors left behind by the geological team who'd abandoned this outpost long before I arrived. But that wasn't what stopped us. At the far wall was a hole, a perfect, circular hole descending into blackness, almost like a throat. Naomi knelt beside it, her face pale. This wasn't made by machinery. Look at the edges. They're melted. Travis stepped backward. So something came up through the floor. No, I said quietly. Something came up and then left. Ben shined his flashlight down the shaft. The beam didn't reach a bottom. Lena whispered, That means whatever made that hole is already in the station. A sound soft and distant floated up from the shaft. A faint shifting, like something brushing against the walls of a throat. Then a whisper, not directed at any of us, directed up toward the tunnel ceiling, as if searching. It's calling something, Naomi whispered. No, I said. It's waiting for something. Travis flinched violently. I'm sorry, but why are we still down here? Why aren't we filling that thing with concrete and evacuating? Because if we seal it wrong, I said, we might trap air and pressure underneath the station. The whole foundation could collapse. And evacuation? He pushed. We can't call for help. Not until the satellite window opens tonight. Our communication is locked to hourly pulses to conserve power. Naomi stood slowly. We need to check the cameras. Yes, I said. We need to know what's moving inside the station. We moved back toward the ladder, but halfway there, Ben froze. Guys, he whispered. We turned. His flashlight beam shook in his hands. Something's behind us. I snapped my light toward the far end of the tunnel. The frost on the walls was moving, drawing itself into a shape. A tall shape, a human shape, but misshapen. Too long, too thin. A mockery of a human outline grown from crystallized ice. And it was watching us. No face, no eyes, just the posture of a thing mimicking a person. Naomi's voice trembled. Back up slowly. The frost shape leaned forward like it was trying to figure out how we stood, how we breathed, how we moved. And then, it stepped toward us. Just one step. But the sound of ice cracking under its weight echoed through the tunnel like a bone snapping. Run, I said. We sprinted. Boots pounding metal floor. Breath stinging our lungs. The emergency lights flickering in frantic bursts overhead. The thing behind us didn't chase fast. It didn't need to. It moved with the confidence of something that had hunted here long before any of us arrived. When we reached the ladder, I practically shoved them upward. Ben first, then Lena, then Naomi. Travis scrambled past me, climbing faster than I'd ever seen him move. I climbed last. When I reached the top and slammed the hatch shut, I heard a sound from below. A soft tap, not a fist. A finger, testing the metal. I turned the wheel lock and stepped back. The tapping stopped, but something whispered through the hatch. Not a voice. Something closer to a breath dragged across metal. We returned to the common room in silence. No one wanted to be the first to speak. Finally, Naomi whispered, We're not dealing with hallucinations. No, I said, we're not. And it wasn't just mimicking a person, she said. It was learning how to be one. Travis collapsed onto the couch, pulling his knees to his chest. This isn't what we signed up for. Ben looked down at his hands. What does it want from us? It wants to understand us, I said, to replicate us, and it's getting better. Then Lena asked the question no one else dared. Ethan, has something like this happened before? I closed my eyes. Yes, I'd seen a shape like that once before. The night we lost Michael Ward, it had followed his footprints to the door, studied them, then studied ours. Before? I said finally. Yes, but never this quickly. Naomi frowned. So why now? There's more activity beneath the ice this year, I said. More structural shifts, more electromagnetic distortion. It's waking up faster. Ben opened his mouth to respond when the lights flickered again, 3 short pulses. A pattern, not random. Code. I ran to the command console and pulled up the internal camera grid. 4 feeds were offline. 3 were distorted with static. Only one camera 6, facing the east corridor, was clear. And on that feed, a person was walking down the hallway. A tall man in heavy winter gear, moving slowly, steadily, toward the east door. That's... Travis whispered. Who is that? My stomach twisted, because I recognized the gait, the posture, the slow drag of the right foot. It couldn't be. Lena stepped closer to the monitor. Her voice cracked. That's Michael. She was right. It was him. Or rather, it was something wearing him. Michael Ward, or the imitation crafted in his image, walked directly toward the east door. He paused in front of it, tilted his head, as if listening for something. Then he raised a hand and placed it gently against the metal. Ethan, Naomi whispered. It's learning the layout. The figure leaned close to the door, his face nearly touching the metal. Then, he whispered, his voice muffled through the intercom mic. But we all heard it. Let me in. Lena sobbed. Please, Ethan, make it stop. Travis backed away again. Turn off the cameras. Turn them off. No, I said. We need to see this. The figure turned toward the camera. Michael's face. But wrong. Too symmetrical. The eyes not blinking. The smile too wide. And beneath the human face, something fluttered, as if another face was shifting underneath the skin. We need to lock down the east wing, I said. Ben nodded quickly. I'll do it. He moved toward the panel and then froze. He blinked, confused. Where was I just going? He looked around, panic rising. Ethan, he whispered, I think I'm losing time again. I grabbed his shoulders. Ben, look at me. Stay with me. But he was already drifting. No, not drifting. Splitting, like someone else was wearing his body from the inside. Naomi swore under her breath. It's been inside the station since last night, and it's already affecting cognition. Just then, a scream tore through the hallway. Lena jumped. Travis paled. That came from the north wing. Naomi gasped. We ran. The hallway seemed longer than usual, twisting subtly in ways it never had before. Shadows stretched across the walls like they were alive. Each step echoed with an unnatural resonance. The scream came again, higher this time, then abruptly cut off. We reached the north dormitory room and burst inside. The room was empty, but on the floor was a boot, a single boot, and beside it, a streak of frost, leading toward the air vent. Ben whispered. Someone's gone. Travis stepped backward. We need to get out of here, right now. There is no out, I said. Not until the satellite window opens. Then what the hell do we do? Naomi cried. I swallowed hard, because I already knew the answer, and it was the one thing I hoped I wouldn't have to say aloud. We activate the safe room. Travis stared at me. The one you said was only for emergencies? Yes, and this qualifies? He demanded. Something is inside this station, I said, and it's taken one of us. The recruits fell silent. Then Lena whispered the question that chilled me more than anything the ice could conjure. Ethan, who's missing? I looked at the 5 of them. Travis, Naomi, Ben, Lena, and me. 5. But there had been 6 when we left the common room. Someone hadn't followed us out of the tunnels. Someone had stayed behind. Or rather, Someone had been taken, but when I looked at the faces around me, I felt my blood turn to ice. Because one of them wasn't breathing right. One of them wasn't blinking right. One of them was standing too still. And one of them, when the light hit their face at just the right angle, cast no shadow on the floor. The first rule of Antarctic survival isn't written in any manual, but it should be. Trust no one, not completely. The cold will test you, but the isolation will twist you. And once the ice begins learning your face, wearing your voice, studying your memories, the line between friend and foe blurs until you can't tell which reflection is yours. We stood there in the north dormitory hallway, 5 of us breathing fast and uneven, but there should have been 6. One of the recruits hadn't made it out of the tunnels with us. Someone had been taken, or replaced, or both. And the worst part, the part that knotted itself around my ribs like a frostbitten hand, was that even I didn't immediately know who it was. The fluorescent lights above us flickered again, humming erratically. Shadows shivered across the walls like they were alive. Every face looked back at me with its own blend of fear, suspicion, and exhaustion, but fear can mimic anything, even human expression. For a moment, I simply listened. Breathing, footsteps, heartbeats. The faint hum of the heating system fighting against the cold above us, and beneath it all, just barely detectable, a sound I'd hoped never to hear again. Scraping, something dragging itself through the ventilation system. Slow, purposeful, hunting. I took a breath. Everyone, into the main hall. Now. Travis backed away from me. Why? What did you see? Ethan, who's missing? I don't know, I admitted, and the honesty of it made Naomi's face tighten. That's why we're going to the safe room. It's the only place we can lock down individually. Lena shook her head. No, we can't split up. That's exactly how it gets us. We're not splitting up, I said. We're going together. But the safe room has biometric checks. No one can fake that. Not even something wearing a human face. Ben swallowed hard. Unless it's learned how. It hasn't, I said, though uncertainty cracked through my voice like thin ice. We walked fast, half running down the hallway toward the south wing where the safe room was located. The air felt heavier the deeper we moved into the station. I could feel the cold behind the walls, pressing inward, seeping through metal seams, finding weaknesses. When we reached the heavy steel door, Travis slammed his hand against the keypad. Open it. It only opens from the main console, I said, stepping toward the control panel. That's when the lights cut out. Complete darkness. A silence so total it felt suffocating. Then, a single light flickered back on behind us. A small emergency lamp mounted above a utility door. It glowed a faint red. Underneath that dim red light stood a silhouette. Tall, thin, head tilted in a way no human head should tilt. It didn't move. It didn't need to. Just the sight of it was enough. Lena let out a strangled gasp. Ben stumbled backward so fast he hit the wall. Naomi whispered, "Oh God." The silhouette stood in total stillness, its limbs too long, its outline fuzzy like heat distortion. But the worst part wasn't its shape. It was that when the light flickered, the silhouette changed. For a single frame, it looked like a woman. The next, a man. The next, a child. Faces shifting like a slide projector speeding through identities. And then, it took one step toward us. That single step was enough to break whatever paralysis had gripped us. I slammed my hand onto the console. The safe room door hissed open, and I shoved everyone inside one by one. Hurry! The silhouette moved faster, not running, not walking, sliding, as if the shadows themselves were carrying it forward. I pushed Lena through the doorway, then Naomi, then Travis. Ben hesitated, his eyes wide, fixed on the shape approaching us. Ben, move. He snapped out of it and leaped inside. I followed close behind and hit the emergency seal just as the silhouette reached the threshold. The door slammed shut. Something slammed against the metal from the outside. A hand, flattened, too many fingers. They scraped slowly down the steel surface, leaving frost trails in their wake. A whisper bled through the crack at the base of the door. Let me in. The voice was every voice, every pitch, every tone, every person it had ever copied. My skin crawled. Lena sobbed quietly. Travis swore under his breath. Naomi pressed her back against the far wall, shaking. Ben stood perfectly still, staring at the door like he was trying to memorize every sound. The whispers continued, then stopped. Silence returned, heavy and suffocating. I exhaled slowly. Okay, we're safe for now, but we're not staying here forever. Travis let out a shaky breath. How can you say that? Did you not see what that thing just did? It knew we were coming here. That's why we needed to get here, I said. This is the only room with independent power and sealed air systems. Whatever's moving through the ventilation can't get in here. Lena hugged her arms tightly around herself. But one of us already isn't who we think they are, right? No one answered, and the silence confirmed everything they feared. Finally, Naomi spoke. We need to test each other. That's what the biometrics are for. I nodded. Exactly. The safe room had a secondary scanner built for medical emergencies, fingerprint reader, retinal scan, pulse measurement. No imitation could mimic all three accurately. Or at least, that's what I hoped. I stepped first. I'll go, then each of you. I placed my right hand on the biometric pad. It scanned my fingerprint, then my retina, then registered my pulse pattern. Green light, clear. Next was Naomi. She approached hesitantly, but didn't hesitate long enough to cause concern. Her print flashed. Her retina matched. Pulse registered normally. Clear. Travis went next. His hands shook, but the scanner didn't waver. Green light. Clear. Next was Lena. She exhaled shakily and pressed her hand onto the pad. When the retinal scanner flashed, she flinched. But then, green light. Clear. I turned to Ben. Your turn. He didn't move. Ben, I said. It's your turn. I know, he said quietly. I just need a second. Travis scoffed. A second? Dude, we're trying to make sure none of us is a monster. That's not helping, Naomi snapped. Ben lifted his gaze to meet mine. His eyes were bloodshot, unfocused. But there was something else behind them. Something struggling beneath the surface. He stepped forward, placed his hand on the pad. Nothing happened. No red light. No green light. No scan. The pad didn't activate at all. Ben froze. That's weird, he said. Maybe it's broken. It worked for everyone else, Travis said, taking a step back. Try again, I said cautiously. Ben placed his hand on the pad again. Again. Nothing. Lena whispered, Ben, look at me. But he didn't. He looked at the pad like someone seeing their reflection for the first time. Naomi moved closer, eyes narrowing. The pad reads thermal signatures. It activates when it detects human body temperature. Ben swallowed hard. So, it's malfunctioning. Naomi shook her head slowly. It's not malfunctioning. It's responding to us. Travis pointed at him. It's you. You're the one. You're the thing. No, Ben snapped. I'm not. I swear I'm not. Scan your retina, I said. He leaned closer to the scanner. It flickered, but instead of reading his eye, the device glitched. Lines of static rippled across the screen. The hum of the scanner stuttered. Then, error. No red. No green. Just a shaking error message. Ben backed away like the device had burned him. I don't understand, he whispered. Why isn't it working? Lena covered her mouth. Travis stepped behind Naomi. He's not human. He's not Ben anymore. I am, Ben insisted desperately. I am human. I remember everything. My sister's birthday, my hometown, the day I got here. I stepped toward him. What's the last thing you remember before climbing the ladder out of the tunnel? He opened his mouth, and then stopped. His eyes flicked left, right, like he was searching for a memory that wasn't there. He stammered, I remember running. And someone grabbed my shoulder. Who grabbed you? I pressed. He blinked rapidly. I don't know. I don't remember their face. Travis shook his head. He got taken. He was taken and replaced. You said yourself that thing was following us. No, Ben insisted. I'm me. I'm still me. I just lost some time. That's how it starts, I said softly. Ben's breathing sped up. No, please, Ethan, I'm not one of those things. Lena stepped forward. Ben, your shadow. He froze, terrified. What about it? Look behind you, she whispered. He didn't want to, but he did, slowly. His shadow stretched across the safe room floor, but halfway along the wall, it flickered. Not like a shadow adjusting to light, like a glitch. It duplicated for a second. 2 shadows, then 1, then 2 again, like something underneath him was trying to sync with his form. Ben stared at the flicker in horror. What's happening to me? No one answered. The silence suffocated him. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. Ethan, please don't let them hurt me. He didn't realize I was afraid too. Afraid because I'd seen this before. Afraid because sometimes the imitation isn't complete. Sometimes the original person is still partly there. Sometimes the thing hasn't finished hollowing them out. Sometimes they're still fighting inside. Ben, I said softly, tell me something only you would know, something private, something the ice couldn't mimic. He thought hard. The muscles in his jaw tightened. When I was 16, he said, I fell through a frozen lake near Anchorage. I was alone. I didn't tell anyone. I never told anyone. My dad was deployed overseas. My mum was working a double shift. I dragged myself out. I lied and said I slipped on the driveway. But I nearly drowned. His voice broke. I never told anyone that, he whispered. Not even my sister. The room fell quiet. Travis muttered, it could have pulled that from your mind. Not if he never told anyone, Naomi said gently. Memory doesn't just live in what we say, Travis countered. We think things. We replay things. What if it got inside his head? Ben covered his face with trembling hands. Please, please. I'm telling the truth. I looked at the scanner again. The biometric pad still hadn't activated. Something wasn't right. The other scans required direct contact, but the thermal sensor was proximity-based. Unless it wasn't detecting temperature because Ben's temperature was unstable, changing, trying to match ours. Ben, I said slowly, hold out your hand. He did. I reached toward it, not touching, just close enough to feel the air above his skin. Cold. Not normal cold. Antarctic cold. You're freezing, I whispered. Ben pulled his hand back, horrified. I'm just scared, Ethan. It's the adrenaline. Or maybe I'm going into shock. No, Naomi said quietly. It's not shock. Your core temperature is dropping, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Lena took a step back, tears spilling down her cheeks. Ben, when did this start? Ben shook his head. I don't know. I don't know what's happening to me. Then suddenly, he collapsed. We rushed to him. His body spasmed violently, then went still. His eyes opened wide, unblinking, staring at the ceiling. His breath fogged the air around him, but not like normal breath. It crystallized. Immediately, right in front of his mouth, a shimmering frost spread across the floor beneath him in thin, spiderweb patterns. He whispered something, so softly we had to lean close to hear it. It's inside the vents. Then his pupils widened unnaturally, too wide, and he stopped blinking, stopped breathing, but he kept moving. His head turned slightly toward us. The ice remembers, he whispered, but it wasn't his voice. Not anymore. Travis screamed and stumbled backward. Lena sobbed. Naomi covered her mouth in horror. I reached instinctively for the emergency tranquilizer case on the wall. What are you doing? Travis shouted. We don't know how far gone he is, I said. The tranquilizers will buy us time. He's not Ben, Travis cried. He's dead. No, Lena whispered. No, he's not dead. Not yet. Ben, or the thing inside him, stood slowly. His movements were unnatural, like joints bending in the wrong order. Naomi whispered, Oh God, it's finishing the replication. Ben stared at us, his expression empty, then smiled weakly, like he was trying to imitate relief, imitate fear, imitate humanity. "Ethan," he said, "I'm okay now." We all froze. No one believed it, not even him. I lunged forward and injected him with the tranquilizer. His body jerked, then slumped. The frost under his feet stopped spreading. He lay still, unmoving, barely breathing, but alive enough that we couldn't abandon him. "We need to restrain him," I said. "We don't know how long the sedative will last." Travis shouted, "We should throw him out." "You heard what it said." "Travis, shut up," Naomi snapped. "We don't kill people," Lena whispered fiercely. "Not even like this." "We don't know if he even is people anymore," Travis roared. "We're not debating this," I said sharply. "We restrain him, we monitor him, and we figure out what's happening." Travis paced frantically. "This place is going to kill us." "Not if we keep our heads," I said. But even as I said it, the intercom crackled again. This time, the voice was clear, precise, and impossible. Ben's voice. Speaking from the vents. "I found him." We froze. Every hair on my body stood on end. The tranquilized body on the floor did not move, but the vents above us echoed with Ben's voice again. "I found Ethan," Lena whispered. "Oh God." Naomi stared at the ceiling. "But if Ben is speaking from the vents, who is that on the floor?" I felt the cold seep into my bones. Because this wasn't one imitation. This wasn't one replacement. This was replication. Simultaneous replication. "The ice isn't copying us one at a time anymore," I whispered. "It's branching, splitting, learning faster." Travis backed into the wall. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said quietly, "that one of us was replaced earlier than we thought." The intercom crackled again. And this time, 5 voices spoke at once, each one mimicking one of us, whispering from the vents. "We found you," Lena screamed. The metal walls began to shake. The frost patterns spread across the floor, and the safe room, the one place meant to protect us, began to grow cold. Too cold. The vents above us shuddered. Then, something began crawling through them. Fast, determined, coming straight toward us. The vents above us shook harder with every passing second. The metal groaned under the weight of whatever was crawling through them, moving with unnatural speed and a cadence that felt almost like breathing. Cold vapor drifted down in thin strands like fingers reaching for us, signaling just how close the thing had gotten. I took a step back from the center of the safe room and studied the air vents, listening beyond the panic, beyond the rising voices of my team, beyond the trembling in my own chest. The scraping sound came in pulses, not one creature, but many, crawling, dragging, breathing, whispering. Travis pressed himself against the far wall, eyes wide. "It's coming through the vents. Ethan, it's coming through the vents." Naomi looked upward, breath trembling, but her voice was clearer than Travis's. "Not yet. The vent shields are reinforced. It would need more time." "Time?" Travis snapped. "We don't have time. It knows we're in here." Lena was on her knees beside Ben's unconscious body. Frost still crept outward from where he lay, shimmer fine and spreading like living veins. Her hands hovered above him but never touched. He's still alive. I can see his chest rise. I kneeled beside her and checked his pulse. Slow, unnaturally slow, barely human, but present. Then Ben whispered again, not from his body but from the vents. "Ethan, help me." The voice was distorted now, layered beneath with something deeper, older, colder. Something that had slept under the ice for centuries. Naomi's voice cut sharply through the tension. "We can't stay in here. This room was built for environmental hazards. Not for whatever this is." Lena looked up at me, tears freezing at the corners of her eyes. "What do we do?" My mind raced. The safe room had independent power, but not for long. The vent shields would hold, but I couldn't guarantee for how long. And worse, something had already infiltrated our systems. The biometric scanner failing, the intercom voices mimicking us, the flickering lights. It was learning exponentially faster. We need to get to the emergency beacon chamber, I said. Travis stared at me. The beacon? The thing that broadcasts straight to the Continental Network? That beacon? Yes, I said. We use it to warn the other stations. We send a continent-wide alert. Then we activate the auto-lockdown sequence. Auto-lockdown? Naomi repeated. Ethan, that seals the entire outpost. From the outside, no rescue, no exit. I know, Lena stood, shaking. So you're talking about a one-way trip? I'm talking about containment, I said. The mimicry, the replication, it's spreading faster than any rule can control, faster than the protocols ever anticipated. Travis pointed at Ben. What about him? What if he wakes up and finishes turning? He won't. Not if he's restrained. Naomi looked at me, eyes steady. Can you promise the lockdown will hold? I thought of the maintenance crew, the silent tools, the shifting faces in the snow, the imitation nearly perfect. No, I answered, but we can try. A metallic shriek tore through the ceiling, and the vent cover above us buckled inward. We didn't wait. I grabbed Ben under his arms, hauling him up. Lena grabbed his legs. Naomi snatched the emergency medkit. Travis grabbed a crowbar from the safety rack, gripping it in both hands with wild desperation. The vent cover flew off, clattering across the room. Cold air blasted down. A shape slithered into the opening. Long, human-shaped, but wrong, its joints bending at impossible angles, its skin shifting, rippling, like memories stitched together in motion. Naomi screamed. Travis swung the crowbar wildly. I shoved Ben toward the safe room door and hit the release. The door slid open. We ran. Behind us, something dropped out of the vent with a wet thud. It crawled after us, too fast, too aware. We sprinted into the hallway, slamming the safe room door shut behind us. The creature hit the steel from inside, metal buckling under the impact. No time. We ran. I led them through the south corridor, Ben's weight dragging on my shoulders with every step. Naomi's hand pressed a towel against his wrist where frost had begun crystallizing beneath the skin. Travis held the crowbar like it was the only thing anchoring him to reality. And Lena looked like she was watching her own death approach with each flicker of the station lights. We reached the stairwell to the lower deck. Then the intercom crackled again. This time, the voice wasn't Ben's. It was mine. Ethan, it said, you can't run. We froze. My voice continued, calm, authoritative, steady as the day I'd given them the orientation briefing. You can't contain what you don't understand. You can't seal what is already inside. Travis looked at me in horror. It's copying you now. The intercom laughed my laugh, but hollowed out like air blown through bones. This isn't your fight anymore, Ethan. Let us help you. Let us become you. I shut it off with a slam of my fist against the control panel. Sparks flew. The intercom died in a burst of static. That's enough. Naomi swallowed hard. It's accelerating. It's learning, I said. But so are we. We descended the metal stairs with our breaths fogging the air around us. The lower deck hummed with generator vibration. It was warmer here slightly, but the warmth felt wrong somehow. Like the heat was struggling to fight something cold pressing in from beneath the foundations of the building. When we reached the emergency beacon chamber, the reinforced door stood slightly ajar. That shouldn't have been possible. None of us touched it. None of us breathed. Then a voice drifted out from inside. Ethan? My chest tightened, not because it was monstrous, because it wasn't. It was her voice. My sister. Gone 11 years. Naomi whispered, Ethan, don't. But I couldn't help myself. I stepped forward, and my sister stepped into view. Except she wasn't her. Not really. The resemblance was perfect, too perfect. Eyes, face, hair, posture. But when she smiled, it was wrong. Not human. Almost gentle. Almost kind, but mimicked. Copied. I've been waiting, she whispered. It took you long enough. Lena grabbed my arm. Ethan, don't look at it. My sister, no. The thing wearing her tilted her head and smiled wider. Do you remember what you told me the night before I left? You said you'd always come back for me, that you'd never leave me behind. My throat closed. Those were my exact words. Only she and I knew that. Only us. Or something that dug deep enough into my memories to find it. The mimic took another step. Her bare feet left no prints on the metal floor. No heat, no weight, no life. You don't have to be afraid, she whispered. We can protect you better than the cold ever could. Naomi lifted her voice, steady and brave. Ethan, that's not her. The creature's head snapped toward Naomi so fast it blurred. Don't interrupt us. Naomi flinched, but held her ground. I stepped between them. Why? I asked the mimic. Why are you doing this? The mimic blinked slowly, thoughtfully. To survive, to evolve, to become. We learned from those you sent. We learned through your memories, through your fears, through your rules. It stepped closer, its face shifting slightly, a ripple of features scanning through identities like pages turning in wind. You created us. My blood turned to ice. No, I said. We found you. The mimic's smile widened. You broke the ice. You dug too deep. You woke us up. Its eyes changed, flickering from my sister's soft brown to a dozen others. Blue, grey, hazel, dead. We were starving, it whispered. Now we feed. Lena's voice cracked. Ethan, what do we do? We finish this, I said. The beacon chamber can override the entire station. If we activate the full isolation protocol, everything seals. Doors, vents, foundations, all of it, no matter what's inside. And what about us? Travis demanded. We make sure it stops here. He stared at me like I'd betrayed him. You're talking about killing us. All of us. No, I said. I'm talking about stopping something that could destroy every research facility on the continent if it gets out. Naomi's voice softened. What if there's another way? There isn't. The mimic moved again, and its form rippled like a mirage. For a moment, I saw a face I hadn't seen in years. Daniel, Julie's brother, alive, or something wearing him like borrowed skin. This isn't sacrifice, the mimic said gently. It's evolution. You can join us. Become part of something eternal. Not interested. Then I lunged. The mimic reacted instantly, its form dissolving into a blur of motion, sliding sideways across the floor within human speed. I shoved Lena behind me and ran for the beacon console. Travis swung the crowbar, missing by inches as the creature darted past him. It grabbed his arm too gently, almost lovingly, and frost spread from its touch, racing up his skin. Travis screamed and fell to his knees. Naomi pulled him back, fighting to break the contact. Get away from him, the mimic whispered. He's already gone. I slammed my hand onto the beacon's primary activation switch. The room shook as the internal locks engaged. Metal barriers dropped from the ceiling. Emergency lights flickered to life. The chamber began humming with the rising frequency of a distress broadcast. A siren wailed through the hallways. Containment Protocol Prime engaged. The mimic screeched a sound that wasn't human or anything close to it. It lunged at me as I reached for the final key needed to seal the station. I felt cold fingers close around my wrist. My muscles froze instantly. My nerves numb. Don't, it whispered. I looked into its eyes, my sister's eyes, and saw nothing but emptiness. No soul, no memory, just imitation, just hunger. I whispered, "You're not her." Then I hit the final switch. The blast doors slammed down, the power grid redirected. The entire outpost screamed as steel and concrete locked into place like a tomb sealing shut. The mimic recoiled, shrieking. No, a burst of energy ripped through the chamber. The beacon activated, sending a continent-wide alert, a warning no one could ignore. The mimic lunged again, mouth open in a silent wail, but Naomi grabbed the fallen crowbar and slammed it into its head. Its form flickered, shifted, broke. Lena pulled Travis away from the spreading frost on the floor. He was conscious, but barely, his skin pale and cracking like old ice. The mimic crawled toward us, its body tearing, unraveling, revealing too many faces layered beneath its skin. "You can't stop us," it whispered through a dozen voices. "We are everything you fear, and everything you can't become," I said. The chamber lights flared red, and a thermal charge ignited in the corner of the room as part of the containment sequence. Heat, pure, searing heat. The one thing the mimicry couldn't withstand. The creature shrieked as its body began melting, collapsing, folding inward like snow in flame. The skin blistered, revealing nothing beneath. No organs, no bones, no real form. Just a shell, a parasite, a shadow cast by something deeper beneath the ice. Naomi shielded Lena with her arms as the creature dissolved. Travis lay limp on the floor, frost melting on his skin as the chamber grew hotter. I grabbed Ben's unconscious body and dragged him away from the imploding mimic. His skin felt warmer now, less brittle, less wrong. As the mimic's final scream faded, we were left in a chamber filled with steam, smoke, and the smell of thawing metal. Then silence. Absolute silence. The beacon transmission pulsed in the background, a steady, rhythmic warning. Berkner Station compromised. Do not approach. Quarantine in effect. Isolation sealed. For a long moment, none of us moved. Then Lena whispered, "Is it over?" "No," I said softly. "But this part is." Travis groaned. What happens now?" I looked at him, his arm frostbitten, his breath ragged. I looked at Naomi, shaking but alive. I looked at Ben, unconscious but human again. And I looked at Lena, who had more courage in her than she realized. "The rescue teams will be told to stay away," I said. "This place is sealed. No one's getting in." "Or out," Naomi said. "Not until the containment expires." Lena's voice trembled. "How long is that?" I swallowed. 6 months. 6 months of darkness. 6 months of cold. 6 months alone in the most isolated place on Earth. But better us than the world. Naomi sat beside the emergency heater unit and laid her head back against the wall. "We'll survive," she whispered. "Together." Lena nodded, wiping her eyes. "We have food, supplies, heat." Travis forced a weak smile. "And a story no one will ever believe." Ben stirred, eyelids fluttering. "Ethan, you're okay," I said quietly. "You're back," he exhaled shakily. "Did we get it?" I looked around at the sealed chamber. The heat, the lights, the locked doors. "We got this one," I said, "but there are more under the ice." Ben nodded slowly. "Then we keep fighting." An unexpected warmth filled my chest. Hope, not the naive kind. The kind forged under pressure, under fear, under darkness. Berkner might be sealed, we might be trapped, but we were alive. And we had each other. For now, that was enough. I looked toward the sealed exit, where the faintest echo of the creature's last scream still rattled in my memory. "We follow the rules," I said softly, "and we survive." The beacon pulsed. The chamber hummed. Outside, the endless Antarctic night pressed against the walls. But we held the last light. And the ice, at least for now, held nothing else. When the containment chamber finally fell silent, truly silent, in the way only Antarctica understands silence, I felt something inside me settle in a place I never knew existed. A place between fear and purpose, between grief and clarity. The outpost no longer creaked with shifting mimics in the vents. No voices whispered our names from the frost. No silhouettes watched from the snowbanks. But the absence wasn't comforting. It pressed against the walls like a held breath, heavy with the understanding that the danger was never gone, it had only been pushed back, buried deeper beneath ice that remembered too much. Ben slept against the heater, his breathing steady. Naomi sat beside him, exhaustion softening the edges of her face. Travis leaned against the far wall, staring at his frostbitten arm like it belonged to someone he used to be. Lena gently traced circles on the steel floor with her fingertip, grounding herself in the tiniest motion she could control. We were survivors, but we were also witnesses. And sometimes witnessing is the heavier burden. I walked to the sealed hatch, the one that wouldn't open for months, and placed my palm against the cold metal. There was no sound from the other side, no shifting, no scratching, just stillness. But my skin prickled anyway. Because I knew the truth. Danger doesn't disappear. It waits. And when you've lived long enough in the cold, you learn to listen to the quiet as much as the noise. My voice broke softly through the chamber. We're alive, and as long as we are, this station stays sealed. That's our promise. To the world, to the ones we lost, to the ones we could still save. Naomi looked up at me. There was fear in her eyes, yes, but something else, too. Something fiercer. Something that didn't exist in the girl who arrived here days ago. Hope. Not the naive, comforting kind people cling to when they want to feel safe. No, this was the kind of hope you earn. The kind forged in blood, cold, and choices you don't ever stop feeling. Travis cleared his throat. Think they'll remember us out there? After 6 months? I shrugged gently. Some stories don't need an audience. They just need to be lived truthfully. Lena smiled, small, tired, but real. We should tell them, when this is over. Everything. About the voices, the copies, the rules. You should, I said. But maybe not to scare them. Maybe to remind them something important. Naomi tilted her head. What's that? I let out a slow breath. That sometimes the scariest places on Earth aren't trying to kill us. They're trying to teach us who we become when everything else is stripped away. She stared at me, absorbing that, and for the first time since the terror began, I saw a spark in her eyes that wasn't fear, it was resilience. Outside, the continent stretched infinite and merciless in every direction. A place that could freeze your heartbeat in minutes, swallow your tracks in seconds. A place that hid ancient things beneath the ice, things that studied us, mimicked us, wanted to become us. But it was also a place that revealed something most people never learn. When the world goes dark, humans create their own light. We huddled together near the heater, 5 souls in a metal box at the bottom of the world, trying to comprehend what we had survived. There were no guarantees, no promises, only the knowledge that we'd given the world a chance to stay safe a little longer. That had to be enough. Maybe someday, years from now, someone would dig through old Antarctic transmissions and find the warning beacon we triggered. Maybe they'd wonder who sent it. Maybe they'd never know what happened to the team trapped in the ice. Maybe Antarctic Outpost would fade into rumor, a ghost story told around winter campfires by people who had never felt the cold bite of the continent. But that was okay, because we knew. And that truth lived here now. In the silence, in the darkness, in us. I leaned back against the wall, listening to the gentle rise and fall of the other's breath. For the first time in days, it sounded human. Ethan? Lena whispered. Yeah? Do you think we'll make it? I looked around at the exhausted faces illuminated by the faint glow of the beacon lights. The answer came slowly, but with surprising certainty. I think, I said, that anyone who's survived what we just survived is strong enough to make it through anything. The heater hummed softly. Snow shifted against the sealed doors. The beacon pulsed, steady, defiant, alive. And somewhere beneath the miles of ice below us, something ancient and hungry listened. We didn't run. We didn't break. We didn't disappear. We endured. And if you're hearing this, if our story reaches you, somehow remember this. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is the decision that something else matters more. Even at the edge of the world. Even in the heart of the endless dark. Even when you're staring into the face of something not human. Especially then. Because as long as one person chooses to stand their ground, the ice doesn't win.